Joint Committee on Administrative Rules taking no further action on the gun ban legislation that was enacted in January of 2023, faces federal court challenges, including down in the Southern District, and several challenges wanting the U.S. Supreme Court to intervene. But when it comes to the rules that there was so much uncertainty about and confusion about, those rules still in place, despite the Joint Committee on Administrative Rules objecting to that. Welcome back, Bishop on Air. Like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. Doing this early this morning. Got a busy day at the Illinois State House. Follow me on X. Just search Bishop on Air. But also, go find the work that myself and my colleagues put together at thecentersquare.com/Illinois. So if you want to stay plugged in with what's going on at the State House. So yesterday was a Joint Committee on Administrative Rules hearing, and that is where you've got the bipartisan body of state legislators that oversee administrative rules. And they had on their docket a response from agencies, which included the Illinois State Police response to the JCAR objection that happened back in January. And if you recall, essentially, there were enough Republicans more than Democrats on that committee that day where they were able to approve with a simple majority an objection to the rules that were filed by Illinois State Police, essentially saying that they were confusing and not clear enough, and there wasn't enough of a process done to keep those rules clear. And that was after 3 committee hearings that state police were told they had to have across the states and a whole bunch of frequently asked questions. Well, we also previously have reviewed the state police director's response to that, saying that they disagree with the objection. But when there's a disagreement with an objection, there's a failure to remedy that could be implemented by the Joint Committee on Administrative Rules. Now, this wouldn't have blocked any rules from being in effect, but it would have been just another element that could be used in lawsuits against the law. So I chatted with State Representative Ryan Spain and the Democrats' co-chair of the Joint Committee on Administrative Rules, and that's Bill Cunningham, a Democrat from Chicago. And I asked them why they did not take any move towards filing a failure to remedy that particular objection and subsequent response disagreeing with the objection from Illinois State Police. Here is State Senator Bill Cunningham just briefly talking about the process of all of that and how it plays out at the Illinois State House after the Joint Committee on Administrative Rules hearing.
We don't dictate what the answers from the agencies are when they respond. They can offer a response, and then it's up to committee members to address that response should they wish to. We didn't have any committee members wishing to do that today.
So again, Cunningham saying there was nobody who wanted to advance that motion. Well, what about the Republicans? I asked State Representative Ryan Spain why there wasn't a motion to push for some kind of remedy here, right? Or a notice or a motion that says failure to actually address this and to clear this up, the difference between the objection and the state police when it comes to the rules making. Here's Ryan Spain.
I disagree with the response from the Illinois State Police on their objection. The process that they used was convoluted at best. They were deliberately evasive about answering questions on what happens to registrations and data from lawful firearm owners if this action is overturned by the United States Supreme Court, which I think we'll find out about this June. And I was really disappointed to receive that type of response from the Illinois State Police.
So again, Spain responding to the essential response from the state police saying that they disagreed with the objection from JCAR. But what about that remedy that could have been filed as well? Why didn't Republicans bring that remedy forward?
There's a kind of an arcane procedural option to issue a notice for failure to remedy, which would require a majority vote of the committee, which means we would have had to have bipartisan cooperation with members on the majority side of the aisle coming over for that action. we didn't have that majority in place today.
And then the objection, though, is still on the record, right? I mean, people
The
can look at
objection,
and
sure.
the response and kind of make heads and tails out of it.
Yeah, I think it's important to know it's not often that the Joint Committee on Administrative Rules issues an objection to rulemaking. And so it's very noteworthy that in January of this year, based on many failures of communication and clarification from the Illinois State Police, that our committee objected to this rulemaking. And I think it reinforces many of the comments that have been made throughout the state that this ban on certain firearms is deeply flawed.
So again, Spain talking about how they just didn't have the votes to advance a motion for Illinois State Police to actually fix the conflict between the objection and their response denying that objection. So interesting to hear that, but that wasn't the only thing they talked about yesterday at the Joint Committee on Administrative Rules. They also discussed a variety of things concerning migrant health care spending. And if you follow me on X, you'll see that story I put for thecentersquare.com, which talks about how much the non-citizen migrant health care costs are impacting the state's taxpayers. Well, the governor's administration is looking to possibly remove thousands of non-citizen migrant seniors off of the taxpayer subsidized program and possibly into Obamacare or into Medicaid or Medicare, depending on how that all works out. State Senator Don DeWitt, he talked about what they heard from the governor's administration when it comes to new rules they are planning to file on regards to health care subsidies for non-citizen migrants.
That hasn't formally been filed yet, and I haven't read it. But what I understand is they are going to be reviewing current members of the migrant health care programs, both 65 and over, and as we heard today, from 42 to 64, to find out which of those people may actually qualify for either free market health care services, Obamacare if you will, or if they don't, they may be eligible for either Medicare or Medicaid based on their age. So, like all Illinois citizens that go through that process, again, I think it's a good measure. They're talking about 6,000 people, which, as she said, would be a savings of $14 million. And I'm sure that lower bracket of age, the lower age bracket will probably provide equal savings if they're able to move some of those folks off the migrant program.
What was this? So they're thinking $14 million in savings from around 6,000 individuals being taken off the rolls. But if you look at some of the numbers that the Pritzker administration has compiled on just how pricey this is and how many people are impacted by this, you've got a report, and as I published with the centersquare.com, a report from HFS dated February 13th shows 15,773 individuals in the health benefit for immigrant seniors program with a per-person cost of $1,100. For the 16,966 in the health benefits for immigrant adults between the age of 55 and 64, the per-person cost is $1,164. For the 36,761 in the 42 to 45 program, the cost is $754 per person. Total cost, though, from July 2022 to June 2023 is $618 million. So they're looking at some kind of cost-saving measures, and DeWitt also talked about the possible changes to the co-pays for the migrants. And here's Senator DeWitt.
It appears that they are going to be, by eliminating the $100 copay on emergency room services, that $100 will either be paid by the federal government, which will save the state that $100, or it will be deducted from the reimbursement going to the service provider, be it the hospital, emergency room, whatever the case may be. Either way, it's a positive move from the standpoint that the state is saving money on a per-patient basis. And that's
So again, DeWitt talking about the copay system and how that could possibly change and save taxpayers some money. Regardless, hundreds of millions of dollars are being spent on this. But Democrat State Senator Bill Cunningham, the co-chair of JCAR, he talked about how this is a positive development.
I think it's very positive. I think the department is using all the tools within their disposal to contain costs of this program. I think what they proposed today is very constructive.
So you've got some interesting stuff happening in JCAR. They also talked about $1 billion the state's going to get from the federal government concerning the broadband expansion. So that was in JCAR. Later on in the day, of course, we had that issue with the lockdown at the state capitol, which was rather fascinating, being in the basement, working, and then having to hear this.
May I have your attention, please? May I have your attention, please? A building lockdown is now in effect. No one should enter or exit the building. Please shelter yourself and any visitors or customers in place. Secure your room or area immediately. You will be notified when it is safe to leave your secure area.
So hearing that, after I saw a Springfield police officer carrying an AR-15 walking the perimeter of the building, and several other law enforcement officers, including Secretary of State Police, and they had bomb-sniffing dogs, and all return was ordered with it's now safe to return to work. But the Secretary of State issued a statement saying that earlier in the afternoon, Secretary of State Police received notice of a threat involving the state capitol building. Out of an abundance of caution, a building lockdown order was issued, and Secretary of State Police and Springfield Police conducted a sweep of the Capitol grounds, which revealed no evidence of a credible threat, and no immediate danger was identified. So it was lifted at about 3 p.m. So a busy day at the Capitol, but then later on in the evening, they had a House Judiciary Criminal Committee where they had a whole bunch of bills that they could have brought up, including bills concerning firearms. But some of the measures they passed dealt with police districts, and if they hire somebody and put them through police training, what kind of recourse is there if that hired individual goes off to another district and the previous district has to hold the bag on the funding for the training? That was an issue. You also had that Ileana task force of law enforcement agencies working together to try to combat gun trafficking. That advanced out of committee. You also had State Representative Cam Buckner's measure that ultimately would say that there's a difference between unlawful use of a weapon and unlawful possession of a weapon. So he wants to make it clear and create that new title, unlawful possession of a weapon, saying that there's a difference between possession and use. So he wants to delineate that. Some pushback was that it's not only prospective, but it would be retroactive to essentially relabel unlawful use of a weapon violations if it's qualified for unlawful possession of a weapon violation. And the thinking there is the stigma of having a unlawful use of a weapon charge on a record when they were just caught with it by circumstance. There's a stigma there that they want to try to get away from. It won't change any of the sentencing or anything like that. But the pushback from Republicans was, they still think that unlawful possession is considered, unlawful use. And also, if it's retroactive, then you're going to have states' attorneys and counties across the state having to go back, 50 some odd years to reclassify a lot of those charges, which is a lot of work to do. So regardless, that measure also advanced out of committee, but that was essentially the bulk of what happened in the House Judiciary Criminal Committee. So we're back at it at the Illinois State House today. They're starting early. That's why I'm getting out of here early, all right? So you guys have yourself a wonderful rest of the day. And be sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell with Bishop on Air.